Guys, it's Friday and I'm here in downtown Davao. We have the Treasury on my left hand side and this road going this way is very busy from around 6 o'clock in the evening with the ladies of the night in Davao. But I'm not down here to see a lady, I'm down here to catch up with Salina. Guys, it's Friday and I've just found Salina. He's sitting in a cafe behind Central Bank. So it's our time to go into Under Our Skin. Now, we've done 3 of these and most of mine was about me living in Crawley. But today, I'm moving. So when I was 11 to 12 years old, we moved from Crawley to a town called Horsham. And I always remember this because my father packed everybody in the car. So that was my brothers, 2 of them, my sister, 1, my mum, and they all got into this car called the Singer Gazelle. But there was no room for me. And Horsham's about 12 miles from Crawley. And my dad turned around and said, "Here's the bike, you can ride." So, oh yeah, right, that was pretty good. So I had to ride to this new house when I was 11 or 12. I had no idea where the new house was. My dad drew me a map on a piece of paper that took me to this pub on the outskirts of Horsham. And that was me moving from Crawley to Horsham. And I'm going to step in while Salina talks about some of his life while we're having that conversation. But we're here behind the bank on a glorious Friday.
Actually, we're behind the Department of Treasury.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if they give me a loan.
You see the armored truck sitting there? Yeah. You're going to see some pull in, full of money.
There we go. So this is the foreigners' ATM.
We wish.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start with same age, about 11 and 12 years old. 12, I think. So this would have been about 66, 67. And my father was stationed for a second time, again, at Anderson Air Force Base on Guam. Now this is, at the time, the middle of the Vietnam War.
Ooh.
So there was, the base was doing Arclight, Operation Arclight, which was the bombing campaign of South Vietnam by the B-52 bombers.
So that all flew out from Guam?
Well, they flew from Guam and also Thailand. There were 2 bases in Thailand that they flew from also, because they wanted a 24-hour bombing campaign, non-stop. So you know, obviously you needed at least 3 different bases flying bombers, you know, around the clock. I think Utapao and Udorn, the 2 bases in Thailand, were also part of the Arclight bombing campaign. Have you ever watched the movie Apocalypse Now?
Oh, okay. Yeah, when they come across, I like the bit where they come across the beach with the helicopters.
Yeah. Well, there's just before that scene, there's a scene where they're coming down the coast to meet up with the colonel, to meet up with their escort up the mouth of the river, they call it, right?
Okay.
And suddenly you'll hear this boom, boom, boom going off in the background. And the young black kid says, "What's that?" Or somebody says, "What's that?" And the captain says, "Arc light." B-52 bombers. You can't see them because they're so high. They're 35, 40,000 feet in the air. But they're saturation bombing. And you can hear the concussions, right? Because each bomber carried, 72 500-pound bombs. And you get a flight of 10, 12, 14 bombers, all simultaneously releasing 72 500-pound bombs per plane.
Wow.
It was all pre-planned too. They would space the planes a certain distance so that they would saturate one area, meaning no. If you went to that area afterwards, each bomb crater would be edge to edge.
Yeah.
No area left untouched.
Like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, and it would cover, several square miles. There wouldn't be no jungle left, nothing. It would just be a flat plain of nothing but bomb craters.
My God.
It's called saturation bombing. Anyways, we lived on base, and my father had some rank now, so we could get a nice place on base. However, we were bused off base to a town called Davao for school, for middle school. And it was there that I experienced racism. The locals, the Chamorros, Romanians, they actually didn't like us. They didn't like all the mostly white students coming into their schools. I mean, with 4 military bases on the island, the school was practically overrun with white kids. Is this guy blocking our view?
It's a little bit, yeah. That's okay. It's all part of the video.
So there was some conflict going on at the school. I myself was in 2 fights, and they were basically racist fights.
Okay. And that was with the locals?
Yeah, it was with the Chamorros. One was in a hallway. For no reason, me and this other guy got into it. Threw a couple punches, and then it got broken up. Another time I was jumped, like 3 or 4 of them, out in the parking lot waiting for the bus. Usually it involved a girl.
Oh, there we go.
A lot of times it was a girl. They didn't like us hitting on the girls. And of course, just like Filipinos, they're pretty girls.
Right, yeah.
We couldn't help ourselves.
Well, I think that's part of growing up. That's when all the testosterone comes out in the body, and you want to become the person that has a nice-looking young lady on your arm.
Oh yeah.
Just because the local people can't deal with that, that's their issue, I think. Their loss, your gain.
Yeah.
Apart from you might end up with a few black eyes and a few punches in the head, and
To say the least.
to say the least, yeah.
But part of taking the bus off base meant that every morning, and of course afternoon, we were bus bound, but every morning the bus would go around the neighborhood and hit bus stops picking up all the kids.
Is that one of those big yellow buses?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got to know some other boys that would get on the bus from different neighborhoods, and we became friends. And there was a group of 3 or 4 of us, 5 of us, and one of the guys, and I don't remember which one it was, had the brilliant idea that as soon as we got on the bus and the bus pulled away to the next stop, why go to school? Just get off at the next stop.
That's a great idea.
So we would skip school. We'd just simply go to the next stop, or a stop that wasn't near your house, so that your parents couldn't see you getting off the bus. And the driver, he didn't care. He was a Chamorro. So we started skipping school on a regular basis. Usually we go hang out at the beach. The base had its own private beach called Taragi. And it wasn't long before we discovered there were GIs hanging out at the beach.
Oh, right. From the same base.
Yeah. They had some time off from work. So what are they going to do? Well, the best thing is go hang out at the beach, right? And we noticed that they, even though they were young like us, these guys were 18, 19 years old. They would wear a piece of uniform, usually, like a camouflage shirt with their name tag, something like that. Well, they had a beer hut right there on the beach, and these guys would go buy a 6-pack, 12-pack of beer and get drunk on the beach. Well, we thought, why couldn't we do that? we were 12, 13, 14 years old, but hey, it looked good to us. So we did. We all of us, 4 or 5 of us, stole a piece of uniform, from our dads with his name tag stenciled on it, and we put on a pair of sunglasses and go up and buy beer. And we didn't get carded. They just assumed we were like the other GIs.
Right.
Just maybe a little younger looking. But they didn't care. They were making a beer sale. And again, it was Chamorros making it.
So how do they charge for the beer? They just charge against the person's ID?
No, you had to pay cash.
All right.
Which, all of us were getting allowances because we also like to go hang out, at the gym or what was called recreation center on the base.
Okay.
Where they had the gym, they had what was called a teen club, pool tables, snack bar. Just keep the kids out of trouble.
All right. They should have moved that to the beach, really, shouldn't they? The rec club should have gone down the beach.
They could have started selling beer right there in the teen club. That would have helped. We wouldn't have had to go all the way to the beach. But eventually, I got caught.
Oh, well, there we go.
But this was towards the end of the 2-year hitch. I came home drunk one day and got sick. right in my bedroom. And my parents came in and said, "Oh my God, they could smell the beer." So I got grounded. I was put on.
Stay at home.
Yes.
Not allowed to go
Couldn't
out.
go anywhere. Couldn't go to the teen club. Couldn't go to the beach. Nothing. So I would listen to my record collection, music. Remember, last video I mentioned how I'd really gotten into music.
Yeah, the Beatles had changed.
The Beatles. Well, now I discovered Jimi Hendrix, and I really liked Hendrix.
Right. Yeah.
And I told my dad, I said, I want to play music. If I'm going to be stuck here in the house, I want to play music. So my dad cooperated. He bought me a drum set because I was really interested in learning drumming. And I spent about a month learning independence.
Oh.
You can't be a drummer unless you learn independence, which is making all 4 components, meaning both hands, both feet, do independent rhythm. In other words, one hand has to play a hi-hat, one hand has to play the snare, one foot plays the hi-hat pedal, and the other foot plays the bass pedal. And you have to learn to coordinate all 4 to play a rhythm, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the song required. It took me about a month and a half to learn independence. Now I got in touch with my 4 or 5 buddies because I knew all of them played instruments.
Are these the guys you used to go to the beach with?
Yes, hang on. We were all grounded because we all got caught drinking. So we thought, wow, this is great. We're going to form a band. But of course, you have to get together. So we had to get the parents in on this. And we had to have, so they all agreed and we would rotate practice. Because who can stand group of 13, 14-year-old kids learning how to be a rock band, right?
Yeah, making some noise.
Making a lot of noise. And so we did. We would get together, we would practice. Cliff, Corky, Lee. Cliff was a good lead guitarist, and he was our singer, because none of us could sing. So Cliff got assigned the job.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't a great voice either, but who cares at 13, 14, right?
He won the vote from
Yeah.
everybody.
Corky played bass, and Lee, we had a hard time getting Lee in the band. He was a new guy. He just moved there a few months before. But Lee played keyboards. He had a Vox organ, a little portable organ, and we badly needed a keyboard player. We later brought in a guy named Steve, who had been caught long before we got caught drinking. Steve reappears later on in my story. Turned into an alcoholic later on in life, and I met him later. But he was a hardcore guy. Anyways, Steve played bass, although he wanted to play drums, but that was the position was already taken. So we started learning music. He said, you know, we're going to learn some tunes. We're going to make money. We're going to go play at the rec center, the King Club. Maybe we can get gigs off bass.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, make some money, play on stage.
Go down the beach.
Go ahead.
Spend
play
money.
down.
Get grounded again.
So, of course, this requires you learn some tunes. You got to have a repertoire of
Yeah.
tunes, and you're going to play cover songs. So, of course, I believe the first song we learned was "Little Bit of Soul"
Oh, right, okay.
by the Music Explosion.
Yeah. Why did you
A
do
little bit
that?
of soul, yeah, a little bit of soul, a little bit of soul.
But not loud and rock. Not in the Jimi Hendrix genre.
That's coming.
That's coming. Okay.
Yeah. So from there we went. I think "Hang On, Sloopy." Remember that song?
Oh. Hang on, Sloopy, hang on.
Yeah.
That one.
The McCoys.
Yeah.
With Rick Derringer. Gloria.
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 Gloria. There we go. Yeah.
Who played that? Shadows of Midnight, something like that.
Is it?
Yeah, that was a popular song.
Yeah.
Louie
Oh.
by the Kingsmen.
There
The
we
problem with Louie was nobody could understand the lyrics. Remember, that was the thing with the song.
Yeah.
Louie.
Ooh, baby. Been in lots
We
of
gotta
movies. Yeah. Louis.
And then he would do this verse, right? Blah, 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 we're gonna, but nobody could understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
So we would make up the lyrics. Like Cliff, our lead singer, we said, we don't care what you sing. We can't we listened to that record probably 100 times trying to decipher the lyrics. Nobody can make out the lyrics.
Oh, it's a profession now for some people. They listen to these records and it's like there's certain words. Oh, I'm going to have a hot dog or something like that. And it comes up with a really, really popular song.
Well, you can Google the lyrics now, right?
Yeah.
Here's where Jimi Hendrix comes in. We learned "Hey Joe." Everybody loved "Hey Joe."
Yeah.
Where you going with that gun in your hand?
That's it. That's a
great song.
Yeah, great record. Sad loss when he passed away.
And one of our favorite, which the crowd loved this song, was "Good Lovin'" by the Rascals.
Oh, right, okay. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, it's "Good Lovin'." Hey doctor, can you tell me what's ailing me?
Oh, right.
I said, a doctor, Mr. MD.
Because this time, because at this time when you were going through this was like, what, 69?
This would have been 66, 67, 68.
Okay. Yeah.
So close to 69. But "Good Lovin'" had an organ solo, not a guitar solo. Most songs had guitar solos, but "Good Lovin' had an organ solo. So this required Lee had to solo, and he was a shy guy. He liked standing in back with his organ, right? And the spotlight would be on Lee because he had to learn that solo. For me, it wasn't bad because drumming back then wasn't particularly complicated.
You're right.
Most of the beats were pretty easy to learn, and nobody did drum solos back then. Thank God.
Yeah. So how did Lee get on?
It took Lee weeks to learn that solo, I remember. And I don't know why, but he had trouble. But he finally learned it. So we had this repertoire of maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 songs that we'd learned fairly well.
Yeah.
We're always working on the next song, right? It takes time to learn it. Everybody has to get their part down. We have to put it all together, practice. So we had our first gig at the teen club, but we only had 6, 7, 8 songs. So we just had to keep playing the same songs over and over, right?
Well, 7 songs got you at least 30 minutes, didn't it?
Oh yeah, you could. In fact, we told Lee once he had the organ solo down for Good Lovin', we said, drag that out, extend that out, that solo, just repeat it, just repeat it again, and that's what we were doing.
Put some creativity into it.
Yes, we would drag out each song to make it last a little longer, and we try to get Cliff, who was our lead guitarist, to solo out too. Right? Okay. Stretch out his lead guitar solos. But anyways, it all ended when we left the island because we were only there for a 2-year tour.
That's a bit sad. So you had to, after 2 years, then your father was reassigned somewhere else?
Yeah, that's pretty much how the military works.
Okay.
2 years is your average pitch, or average station.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can go out to 3, but generally 2 years. But in that 2 years, I did other things, not just play music. As part of school, I joined a class called Exploring Guam. Everybody wanted to be in that class. Got a young guy, because all the teachers were from the U.S., they were on contract. So they were all these white American teachers that come over under contract from the military to teach. And this guy was a young hippie guy. He was the exception to the older classic teachers.
So this was like the pre-Woodstock influence on your teacher.
Yeah, he had a beard, long hair that he tied back in a ponytail. But he was very hip. Everybody liked him. I don't remember his name. But this class would study. Basically, we would study the island of Guam. And as part of that, we'd take field trips. We'd go out, visit different locations around the island. And for the school year, at the end of the year, the biggest trip was going on a pre-planned excursion plane flight to Saipan Island. Saipan Island is part of the Marianas Islands near Guam.
Okay, so how far was that away?
It's maybe, I don't know, 100 miles.
Okay, so quite close then.
Yeah, fairly close. In between is a very tiny island called Tinian. And the plane flight to Saipan, the pilot took it down low, flew over Tinian, and came over the loudspeaker and said, "There's the airfield that the bomber that dropped the Hiroshima atomic bomb took off from."
Oh, Enola Gay?
Yes.
Yeah.
He said that runway and that particular parking spot is where the Enola Gay was loaded with the atomic bomb for Hiroshima.
What ended the Second World War.
Yeah.
In a big way.
And this whole trip's going to turn into World War II, all about World War II, because we land on Saipan, on an old Japanese airfield. We stay at a beachfront hotel, and in fact the hotel had been built right on the invasion beach where the Americans invaded. And out in the surf, stuck on the coral reef were several American Sherman tanks that had been hit by artillery fire during the invasion. So you could actually swim out to these old rusty tanks.
Have a look around them.
Have a look around at these old tanks. I think the first day we took an island tour, and there was a bus, and all the kids got on the bus. Well, by coincidence, we were there when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was cleaning up the island, finally,
Right.
from the Second World War. They wanted to turn Saipan into a big tourist trap. Well, to them that meant getting rid of all this old war wreckage.
Yeah, nobody wants to go and lay on the beach when you got a rusty Sherman tank
Yeah.
sitting next to you.
Or go trekking out in the jungle and come across bombed out
Yeah.
artillery positions or
Or munitions.
bunkers or
Munitions just laying around.
exactly
Machine guns.
wasn't very safe. But what they had done is they had collected all of this stuff, guns, shells, you name it, and they'd piled it up in a big field. We drove by that on the bus, and we saw that, and everybody shouted, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" No, they said, "Oh, it's not safe. They don't know what's might still be dangerous, explosive." So we ended up north end of the island, went to sanitized positions. We saw Suicide Cliff, where some of the locals had jumped off during the war. Also, we stopped at the supposed prison, where the conspiracy theory goes that Amelia Earhart,
Okay, yeah.
the woman that flew around the world and then disappeared over the Pacific.
Yeah, with a navigator.
Yes.
He wasn't a friend of Lee, was he? Because he was an alcoholic, I've read.
No. One of the conspiracy theories of what happened to Amelia Earhart was that she crash landed on some island where the Japanese were at the time. This was before the war had started, right? But the Japanese had occupied quite a few islands in the Pacific. And she crash landed, got captured by the Japanese, and was brought to Saipan, which the Japanese at the time were occupying. And they threw her in a local prison.
Right.
And kept her there for several years, supposedly. And she ended up dying, I don't know why. That's how the story goes. So anyways, part of the tour was we visited this old rundown prison where Amelia Earhart was supposedly kept.
Yeah.
But the end of the tour, the next day we're leaving the island that night by plane. Me and another guy got up early. We had this brainstorm. We're going to take a taxi up to that field. And we're going to collect some of the old war material that was piled up. So we did. We went up there with a couple boxes, big boxes, and we collected shells, hand grenades, bayonets, old rusty rock guns, and we came back to the hotel. And we really believed that we were going to be able to take this stuff home, right? We were going to get on the plane with a box load of old World War II stuff. We did get on the plane. We did make it back to the airport in Guam. But of course, they found it as we were coming through customs. And of course, at that time, security wasn't a big deal, right?
Yeah. Not like today at airports.
Yeah. I mean, today, if we'd have done that, we'd still be in jail.
Yeah.
As terrorists.
On Saipan.
Yes. In Amelia Earhart's jail now.
Yeah.
But they confiscated all that stuff. I did manage to hide one American hand grenade, disarmed of course.
Oh, what a pity.
And to this day, my youngest brother still has that hand grenade.
Oh my God. Very good.
Yeah.
A relic from Saipan with your brother. And where's your brother then? Is he New York?
This is my youngest brother who had just been born.
Okay.
So now, of course, he's 10 years younger than me. And now, of course, he's 10 years, which will make him 56 now.
Oh, 56. There we go.
Also, while on the island, I played American football. I was a quarterback. That's fairly good. My younger brother, middle younger brother, he was very good. Yeah. We played, we had, during that time, the Bob Hope USO Tour came to the island. The Bob Hope.
Oh.
He used to do, for the troops in Vietnam, he would do a USO tour.
Okay.
He put on a show. We had all these Hollywood stars would come.
So that's where the Hollywood stars would go out and visit the troops in the field, in action.
No.
No?
I think they would set up a big stage at a base in a safe area, of course.
All right.
And they would put on a show, usually music. You know, Bob Hope would do a whole comedy bit with jokes.
Okay.
And then he would bring out his guests, usually a dance number. I don't remember what the whole show included, but he brought his show to Guam.
Okay.
And they set up on the base, and so we went down to watch the show. And I discovered when I got there that Raquel Welch was going to be in the show. And I, as a
young
13, 14-year-old boy, I just went, whoa, I got to see this. And we got down there, and I worked my way to the front of the stage. And I mean, I was literally 5-10 feet from Raquel as she's doing a dance routine in a little mini skirt, go-go boots. The hottest girl that I've ever seen, honestly, to this day.
And she's hot now, and I think she's 75, isn't she, or something like that?
I don't know what she is now. Back then, oh wow, she was smoking hot. A friend of my father's took pictures of the show, and there's actually one picture that shows the back of my head, and I'm just below Raquel as she's doing a dance.
You're drooling. You've got all the saliva all over your t-shirt.
Fortunately, it doesn't show the front, just the back.
Oh, there we go. Well, that could get XXX, really, couldn't it? It could be X-rated.
So, this time also, I had my first girlfriend. I remember her name too, Julie Grimm.
Oh.
And we used to go to the movies together. That we had an outdoor theater. It's kind of like a old American drive-in movie theater, except this had, because of the weather, right? This had benches, and you could watch the movies. I actually ended up working in the projector room, helping load the reels of film and stuff like that. It was great. For a boy, it was great. Girlfriends there. I had a girlfriend. We ended up breaking up because I kind of went too far.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Well, I didn't have my childhood. I moved over to Horsham. I had to find a new school, so I went from a comprehensive school, which was boys and girls. And the reason I had to move is that the school I was at called my mum in, and my father never used to like my mum going to school days, because my mum used to turn around and protect us children, and if anybody started having a go, she'd come out, rip a strip off. And there was a school teacher that was doing this evening discussion about reviews on the children at school, and my name came up, and this teacher turned around and said that I was an unruly, undisciplined, lout.
You're a bad boy.
Bad boy. I was a lout. And my mum turned around and, well, that was it. That was red rag to a bull. My mum turned around and tore a piece out of this headmaster, and she said he was never coming back here again. That was me. So she was taking me out of the school there and then.
So was it taken out by choice or taken out no choice?
I had no choice.
Oh.
My mum was the one that was pulling my ear as I was going out the door. And I always remember the part of it where the head teacher was saying to my mum, this wasn't a good decision wouldn't be a good decision to take your son away from the school because he was getting a good education. And my mum turned around and said, the worst decision was coming to this school. It's full of downbeats and bums, and that was it. That was the end of my schooling in Crawley. The following Tuesday, I remember going to a all-boys school in Horsham called Forest Boys School. There was no girls there at all. It was like a monastery. But because I come from Crawley and Horsham didn't get on. I think in the first week I had about 6 fights. I went home with black eyes, fat lips, big ears, punches in the ribs, and it was like a war zone at the school. It got better over the next 4 years, but my brother was there already. My sister was at the girls' school.
What were the fights about?
Fights were about, I come from Crawley and we don't like Crawley people here. So it wasn't racism, it was just youngsters trying to flex their muscles that, you know,
boys being boys.
Boys being boys. And after the first 3 or 4 fights, because I'd actually won, or I'd actually beaten up the other person that bad, that other people started getting involved in it. If rather than me just walking away, I just used to turn around and lash out and give them a fat lip and give them a black eye, and then all of a sudden more and more bigger guys from the school turned up to take me on. So eventually I got my butt kicked big time, but I always defended myself. I got into scraps. I've become friends with a young guy called Rob Barker, and he turned out to be a nice guy but a bit of a rebel. And his claim to fame was that he was 14 and I was like 12. He was a father to be, put it that way, because he'd gone to the girls' school and he'd gone that little bit too far. So at 14 he was going to be 15 he was going to be a parent, and my mum and my dad were a bit shocked that I was hanging around with a guy that was going to be a father. So
he was worse than a bad boy. He was a naughty boy.
That was it. And at that time, there was a thing in the UK called glam rock. And I always remember it. It was coming out of the rock and roll era, and it was these rock stars in the UK like David Bowie and Mark Boland and Led Zeppelin and Uriah Heep, and they all started to Garry Glitter, that was the other one. They're all getting into this. You want to be part of my gang, yeah. And it was all about this music, and it was leader of the pack, and but you all had to wear these platform shoes and these.
I remember that.
20-inch bell-bottom trousers that you could hardly walk in.
Nehru jackets.
Yeah.
Remember Nehru jackets?
Yeah, and oh God, man. My parents couldn't afford any of that stuff, so I used to have to go out to work, and I'd be working as a paper round, and I'd be working in a baker's shop, and I'd be working whatever I could do to get the clothes that were becoming the norm to wear to school. And
what would that be, like blue jeans?
Yeah, so we used to have to wear blue jeans. My first pair of trousers I bought were red, and I wore them to school.
Red?
Yeah. Consequently, I didn't last long at school before I got sent home because I was just not abiding by the school uniform. So I walked home, which was about 4 miles, and changed, I got put the blue trousers back on, and came back. But I picked up my jacket. I had a Harrington, which was like a little short jacket, but I had this label on it, and it said, and I always remember this. I think my sister bought it for me as a birthday present, and I stitched it on my jacket. But I was no good at stitching, so I used Evo stick, which is like a glue, and I glued it on my jacket, and it turned around and said, "School is a drag, down with school."
Down with school.
And I wore this jacket back. Consequently, I got back into school, and they wanted to see me, and I was wearing this jacket, not realising the badge was on the jacket. Consequently, I got sent home again twice in one day. But this time, by the time I got home, my mum had got home from work. It was like 2 o'clock, and I spent most of the day walking backwards and forwards to school and not doing anything. So the next morning, my father got up and made sure that I wore the correct uniform to school, rather than just being a rebellious oik.
I have a question. With your father, did you reach a point where, I mean, my father, traditionally, if we got out of line, we got whacked. It's smacked. But at this age, I was now as big as my father, right?
All right.
And one day he tried to smack me, and I blocked him. And I said, "You smack me, I'm going to smack you back." And after that, he never touched me. Did you have that?
No, my father was quite draconian. If you stepped out of line, I remember that I stepped out of line once on holiday, and my dad turned around and said, "Come here, come here." And he opened the car door, and he got me out of the car, and he stood me on the side of the road. He closed the car door, and he drove off, leaving me on the side of the road. That was my father.
Oh.
So I thought, oh, okay, this is good. He's going to leave me to my own devices to get home. So I walked across the road, got into a field, and started walking down the field towards the beach.
Maybe it's because my father was military, and right? It was yes sir, no sir, get in line, troops.
Yeah. Well, my father got a lot of aggro from my mum over that, because when he come back to pick me up, which was about 5-10 minutes later, I wasn't there. I disappeared. So the police got called, and there was like a massive search. And when the police found me, I was actually sat outside our bed and breakfast on the chair, looking over the bay, and my dad looked at me with the look that I was going to get my arse kicked, and I was going to get grounded for like 20 years. And my mum was over going to me going, "Are you all right? You okay? You okay? You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." That started my little bit of independence about getting out. So for me, it was about glam rock, which made me rebellious. Getting my father being fairly strict, but he was very draconian in his mentality and what he was doing. And I spoke to my mum last night on the phone, and I said, "Look, I'm going to do this vlog, and I'm going to be mentioning the old boy." Because my father, we always used to call him the old boy, and my mum is always called Biddy. So if you're watching this, Biddy, have a good one. And I remember going to school, and there was this group called Slade, and there was a guy who was a guitarist, used to dress in like a silver suit, and I couldn't afford to get the same style haircut as him, because his hair was very, very straight, and he had like a fringe, but long hair, about 12 inches long. So I went home and I washed my hair, and I pulled my hair up, and I cut my fringe.
Bangs? You mean bangs? He had bangs across the front?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I went home, I washed my hair, I pulled it down on my forehead, and I cut it. It wasn't short enough. I thought I needed a bit of straight, so it got a little bit. Got a bit cut, got a bit more cut.
I remember the Beatles made that haircut fashionable.
Yeah, well,
they were called mop tops, remember? Because the news media said, "Hey, their haircuts look like a mop."
That was it. Anyway, my mop top dried and then shrunk to the top of my head. And I had 8 inches of forehead, and my front hair ended up standing upright. Because it was wet, it was stuck to my forehead, it was great. As soon as it dried, it went spiky.
Hey,
so
you were ahead of your time. That's the punk look.
Yeah, that was terrible. I got at least 4 fights that day when I went to school because I was trying to be something different. My hair at the side was straight, my hair on the top was spiky in the air, up. So I had to move away from Slade, and because David Bowie come out then with Aladdin Sane and Ziggy Stardust, and he had spiky hair. So I jumped camps quickly on YouTube. Yeah. Well, that's a different story. That was back in '74. Yeah. I actually went to his concert.
It's going to be our next vlog, isn't it?
That'll be the next one, yeah.
We're now moving into the 70s.
We are. The famous 70s.
Oh, there's going to be a lot to talk about.
So guys, from Salina and myself, we look forward to speaking to you and joining us on our next vlog. Hopefully you enjoy this one. Take care.